You have cancer. 3 words that change a life forever. We would like to offer another 3 words. Be an overcomer. Welcome to the 1% Podcast, where our conversations with other cancer warriors, survivors, and caregivers allows us to give you that extra boost you need to face your challenge head on, live life from a new perspective, and forge a path that keeps you moving free and clear. Now, welcome your host and cancer survivor, Truett Taylor.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the 13th episode of the 1% Podcast, the show where we dig deep with cancer warriors, survivors, and caregivers in order to give you that 1% you need to keep pushing forward. Today's guest on the show, Jessi, was diagnosed with stage 4B Hodgkins Lymphoma when she was only 28 years old. Through Jessi's journey, she was able to document and write a book called Talk Cancer to Me, which can be found on Amazon. Jessi also created chemo-kits. They're unique, personalized kits that include a selection of high-quality products that will brighten up any cancer patient's day. Be sure to check out chemo-kits.com and order one today. So everyone, let's welcome Jessi to the show. Jessi, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great. So Jessi, why do you feel like it's important for you to share your story with our listeners?
So I think it's important to share my story just because there is such little awareness for young adults with cancer. And it's important for other people to know that they're not alone in this journey and that other people everywhere, all over the world, are facing the same thing that they're going through right now.
Couldn't agree more. What's one specific takeaway you want our listeners to receive from your story?
Definitely that they're not alone.
All right, so let's get started. So tell us a little bit about your life prior to your diagnosis.
Okay, so before I was diagnosed, I was a pharmaceutical sales rep. I spent my days, working 9 to 5, and then after work, I'd hang out with my friends. I'd go to the gym. I'd live basically a normal life, like travel on the weekends, do anything that a 28-year-old would do. I would, date, hang out with my dog. What else? Work out. I worked out a lot, which is crazy because I had no idea how sick I was at that point.
So you had a pretty normal life.
Yeah, a normal life, I would say. I just didn't really have any cares at all.
So share with us the moments that led up to the day that you were diagnosed. What kind of symptoms were you having?
Okay, so this is actually a very crazy story because I was supposed to be going to Vegas and I ended up in urgent care and then the emergency room because I had swollen lymph nodes. The lymph nodes underneath my armpits were probably like the size of 2 golf balls. They were massive. I had abdominal pain. I had night sweats. I had a cough that wouldn't go away. I had a rash all over my legs. I had basically every single symptom of lymphoma. It's just that none of the doctors that I went to were able to piece all of the symptoms together and actually give me a diagnosis. So it's really weird looking back and thinking about it because I went to urgent care because my abdomen hurted. I was in so much pain and I thought it was from working out and the doctors thought it was from working out too. So they thought that I had maybe like sprained a muscle or something like that.
So what other symptoms were you having? You said, I think we talked before, you said you were having like you called them like B-sided symptoms or something like that.
Yeah. So I would wake up in the middle of the night drenched in sweat. And I thought that was my metabolism because I was working out so hard. So I would wake up drenched in sweat pretty much every single night. I had fevers, fatigue. I lost a ton of weight, which everyone thought was from working out so hard. The cough was going on for about 2 years, but it just kept getting misdiagnosed and misdiagnosed. Like doctors told me that it was allergies, that it was acid reflux, and that I was fine because if you looked at me, you would think that I looked like, a normal, healthy 28-year-old. But in reality, I was far from that.
Do you think that just the fact that you looked so healthy kind of led to a misdiagnosis in some way?
Absolutely. 100%.
So the day you got diagnosed, obviously, the ER visit that turned from what you thought was abdominal strain into something else. Like, tell us about what transpired from that moment, from you thinking it was going to be something simple into something that was very, very complicated?
Okay, so when I was in urgent care, I literally thought that I was just going to go in. They were going to give me like an anti-inflammatory because I had assumed that it was just a pulled muscle like my doctor had told me. But they told me that I had kidney stones and to just let them pass. It's fine, whatever, until they did the blood work. And I called my mom that day and I'm like, I don't know, something's wrong with me. She was in New York because my aunt had passed away of leukemia prior to me being diagnosed. But I sent her the blood work and she told me to go to the emergency room immediately. And that's when I knew something was wrong, because my mom's not one to tell me to go to the ER unless there's something drastically wrong. And it blows my mind to this day how the doctors at urgent care didn't even notice it. And it was my mom who had to tell me to go to the ER, and she wasn't even in the same state as me.
So what kind of thoughts were going on in your head when you knew it was a lot more than what you had anticipated?
Well, the thing is, at that time, I didn't really understand the whole blood work. Like now I know all about WBC counts and so forth, but I thought that I did have kidney stones because I don't think my mom wanted to freak me out, but I think she knew like, yeah, something's wrong. So when I went to the emergency room, they were running all of these tests and I could have sworn it was kidney stones. I had no idea actually until, oh my gosh, I'll never forget this. The look on one of the surgeon's faces, he came in and he said that they had to admit me. And I'm like, what? It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I have to stay overnight. And they said that I had to see a specialist in the morning. And it's kind of all a blur from there. And I just remember waking up and my friends were there and my mom was there. She had flown from New York to the hospital. It was crazy.
So take us to the day where you heard the words, "You have cancer."
Well, I kind of had an idea before they actually told me, just because my lymph nodes were so swollen and they had to do a biopsy. And the surgeon actually told my mom pretty much like, there's a very, very high chance that this is lymphoma, because the biopsy showed it, obviously. But they couldn't actually say you have cancer until I had a PET scan and I had the exact result. And it was back and forth, because the doctor in the hospital, the original hospital that I was at, told me, don't worry, it's probably an infection. Like, you're going to be fine. It's probably not cancer. And then 2 days later, she comes back and she's like talking about freezing my eggs and that I have cancer. And I'm just like, what is going on? It's just, I was kind of like numb to it. Like, I didn't cry or anything. I was just like, okay. Like, I was just in shock.
So after all the shock kind of went away and it came time to start all your treatments, what was going on in your head then?
To be honest, I started, so when I was at my first hospital, I was stage 4. So the average or the normal chemo that they would do for lymphoma wouldn't have worked for me. So I had to be transferred to the ICU at another cancer center. And basically I woke up, like I was in and out of consciousness. Like I went into respiratory failure. I was on so many medications, and I woke up to my current doctor and a bunch of his residents, and I was in the ICU, and he basically said, you have cancer, you have to start chemotherapy immediately, as in today, or you're going to die. So I started chemo in the ICU, and it was just, I don't know. I mean, you're on so many medication that you don't really understand what's going on until you leave the hospital, and then it becomes real.
So what kind of treatment plan did they put you on?
So I had a chemo called escalated BCOP, which is basically like a salvage chemotherapy. It's similar to like something that you do before transplant. It's pretty much like the strongest chemo that you can get. So I had that. I had 2 cycles of BCOP. I went into remission after the 2nd cycle. And then after the 4th, I became refractory, meaning that the cancer treatment was no longer working. So they didn't know what to do since I wasn't eligible for a stem cell transplant. So I had to go to immediate radiation. So I had like the highest dose of radiation possible to my entire body, and then 2 more cycles of chemo. And I've been in remission ever since.
So you have all this treatment. Obviously, there's a tremendous amount of side effects that come with that. In your profession, you know, that definitely plays a part in what you do. What were some of the biggest side effects that you have? And then how did that transition over into like a struggle for your everyday life?
So I obviously, since I am was a pharmaceutical rep at the time, I was calling on doctors every day. So I couldn't work because after my chemo was so strong that I became neutropenic, which basically means that I had no immune system. So I couldn't risk, you know, going into a doctor's office and God forbid someone coughs on me and I get sick and so forth. But side effects wise, I mean, like my entire physical identity was gone for me. Like I lost all of my hair, my eyelashes, my eyebrows. I had horrible neuropathy. I actually developed foot drop from one of my chemo drugs, the oral chemotherapy that I had to take. And I actually had to learn how to basically walk again.
Wow.
Which was really, really tough.
Yeah.
I mean, I never thought like I would be walking my dog and then I just randomly collapsed.
What does that do to you mentally? Because again, I know in this day and age, and then as far as how you took care of yourself before, like when you look in the mirror and you honestly don't recognize the person that you see there because you don't have any hair, you've lost a lot of weight, and then all the other things that are happening. What's going on in your head whenever you're staring back at that person in the mirror?
I mean, I think for me personally, it was one thing to lose my hair and all of that, which was obviously traumatizing, but to not be able, like to be a 28-year-old and just walking down the street and you fall, like, I think that was like set me over the edge. Like I just could not deal with that at all because it's like my physical identity is gone and then I couldn't even walk. Like it was honestly, it was horrible. It was depressing. It was just like, I really, at that point, I'm like, I don't even know what to do.
What kind of advice were you giving, or what kind of response were you having from your family and your friends to this time?
Honestly, I think my friends and family would never say anything exactly like anything to my face, but I know that they were mortified by it. I mean, one of my friends owned a gym and he would try to help me, you know, like try to help me learn how to walk again. Like it's not something that you expect to happen to your daughter or your best friend or your coworker.
So when you had lost all of your hair, like you get those looks, like people know something's going on with you.
I mean, at first I was afraid to even wear a wig. I just like, I would put it on and I just would cry because I'm like, okay, what if someone sees and knows that it's a wig? Like, I don't know. I just felt like, you know, you get those looks and people treat you as the sick person. And like, for me, I never was looked at like someone like that, you know? So it was really, really difficult. Like I didn't want pity from anyone.
Yeah. I don't think, you know, I think when you're so independent and then your identity gets stripped away like very rapidly from a disease, you're still that independent person on the inside. So there's nothing that's changed with that. However, you may look completely different. Just, I mean, again, like totally opposite than you did before. So what kind of advice would you give to someone out there who's listening today that, you know, may have a friend or a coworker or a family member that's going through cancer?
That you don't want to make them feel sorry, that you don't want them to think that you feel sorry for them is the best advice I can give, because I think that makes the situation so much worse. Because you don't want pity from anyone, you know, you want, like, my friends were so good about everything. Like when my hair fell out, they'd bring me to go get wigs and, you know, like help me like style my wigs and bring fake eyelashes and help me put them on and like help me try to like get my confidence back. And none of my friends ever really like, they never acted sad in front of me. And I think that helped me a lot because obviously I was depressed, you know, and like, that's the last thing that you want to see, like your family or your friends crying and like worried about you.
So all these things happen. Your life's completely changed. You're going through all this. As you look back on your journey, and I know that we talked about this a little bit before, but we all have those pivotal moments during our battle where we make the decision where we're not going to be a victim of circumstance, even though something terrible has happened to us, and for you very rapidly. But you decide that you're going to be an overcomer. And we all have those moments where we break down and we think, I can't do this, and it's so terrible, and all those things that happen. But we have those moments typically that butt right up to that give us a lot of hope and give us the inspiration that we need to keep pushing forward through such a tough time. Can you describe one of these moments to people listening today that you feel like would really give them some inspiration they need to move forward?
I mean, just hearing my story alone, like I was told that I was going to die. Like I am still that patient that all of the doctors in my hospital and all the nurses talk about, because I am like 1 in a million, you know, like I shouldn't have survived what I did. And no one really thought that I was going to. And so that alone should give people hope. Like, even if you're stage 4, it doesn't matter. Like there's people that survive stage 4 cancer all the time.
What made you not want to quit and not give up?
I mean, for me, it wasn't like I came to a point where I realized, you know, like, yes, this sucks and this is horrible, but it's not just about me. Like it's about my family. It's about my friends, my coworkers. Like there's people all around me that I have to fight for, because to just give up, which there were so many times that I wanted to, it's selfish, and you have to think about the people around you, because it's not just about you.
Yeah. So describe your life to us now. When was your last treatment?
My last treatment was August 3rd, 2016, to be exact. Okay. Ever since then, I mean, I've been in remission for 2 years, but I still go to my doctor every 3 months for a scan and a checkup. The first year, I'm not going to lie, it was super, super hard, because I would have those, you know, moments where I thought that I was relapsing, and I just was like, oh my God, I have to do everything possible that I want, just because, like, what if I get cancer again? Or like, what if I relapse, you know? So I just would just do whatever I wanted. And I guess to this day, I'm not going to lie, I kind of have that same mentality. I'm like, I don't worry as much about relapsing, but I do feel like it's so important to do what you want to do, because life is so short and you never know what's going to happen next.
You ever have those moments where you have like a headache for like a day and you're like, oh my gosh, do I have brain cancer?
Yeah, I have those. I mean, to be honest, the first year after cancer, yeah, I had that. It's like once a week, I'd sit in my car and cry and be like, oh my God, Dad, my stomach hurts. What is this? It's back, you know? So yeah. I think more so like when I have scans coming up, I get that anxiety, but it's not so bad anymore.
So here you are, completely cancer-free, you know, for the past couple of years. Congratulations on that. It seems like you got it really fast, and then all of a sudden it was gone really fast as well too, which is pretty wild. But I'm sure they gave you enough medication to really, you know, experiment and try to get you taken care of, which it sounds like it worked, which is awesome. You know, that's obviously a huge crisis moment and a dramatic change in your life. You know, how's your life been since you finished up treatment? You mentioned, you know, having a little bit of anxiety every time that you get scans now, but I guess I'm more interested in seeing like how your perception on life's changed, because you mentioned earlier that, you know, before being diagnosed with cancer, that you were just kind of carefree and didn't really, you know, have much going on besides your traveling and your job, and just kind of, you know, carefree going through life. What about now that your life was almost lost? Like what's your perception on life now?
My life completely changed. Completely. I mean, before treatment, you know, I was living like this glamorous pharmaceutical rep lifestyle where I was making a ton of money for my age, and I was superficial. You know, I live in Miami. I live in one of the most superficial cities in the country. Like, it's all anyone cares about in the city is money and looks and blah, blah, blah. So since I was diagnosed, I realized, you know, none of those things are important. Like, what can money do? Money can't buy you happiness. Looks can't buy you happiness. And I actually was so miserable at the company that I had worked for, and I took probably like a 50% pay cut to do something that I actually enjoy. So I realized, like life is short and it's not worth unnecessary stress. And if something isn't making me happy, then I have to let it go. And so I've been able to do that. And I started my own company, chemo-kits, too, which I really enjoy, actually making chemo-kits for cancer patients. And I guess I just realized like what's important and what's not important. So
tell us a little bit more about your chemo-kits.
So my chemo-kits are basically care packages for patients going through chemo. When I was going through chemo, I always received flowers, and I couldn't have them because I was neutropenic, and my friends never really knew what to get me. And so I would make these little kits and send them out post-treatment. Just like, it was kind of like a way for me to heal also, and like still be connected and, like realize like what I've been through and what other people are going through. So I created this company where I make chemo kits. And so they have just items that, boost a patient's mood during treatment, like head wrap, face wash, face lotion, just like little pick-me-ups that patients would want. Because it's really hard and it's awkward when someone's diagnosed with cancer, like what do you get them? Like what's appropriate? And what do they need?
I noticed you guys put a card inside each chemo kit as well, too.
Yes. And it's a card with my story.
That's amazing. So the chemo kits thing's taken off. Tell everyone listening today where they can go in and purchase a chemo kit for someone.
Yeah. So you can purchase a chemo kit at www.chemo-kits.com. And we also have an Instagram, chemo kits, and we like to keep it, funny and inspirational.
One of the main reasons that we do this podcast is to celebrate the people that have gone through cancer, whether you're a warrior, a survivor, or a caregiver, and to really highlight you. And just want to let you know that we're all proud of you for what you've done and proud of your courage for being able to share your story so profoundly in all the different outlets that you have out there. Tell us 2 things that motivate you to get up and just to be the best you each day.
2 things that motivate me. Okay, I'm going to say my doctor, of course, because he saved my life, and I wouldn't be here today without him. And like, I was such a brat when I first met him, and I had all of my priorities wrong. And it's just, it sounds corny, but I really want to make him proud because he did save me, and I feel like he did it. It happened for a reason. And one other thing, oh gosh, there's so many, I don't even know. I mean, my family, my friends, other people out there fighting this horrible disease motivates me, to make like use of the life that I have and live it to the fullest, because not everyone has that opportunity.
And final question, what are 3 items that you have on your bucket or life list that you want to accomplish moving forward?
I want to write a second book, which I am in the process of doing. I want to travel to as many countries as possible, which I've been to a lot within the past 2 years since I have been in remission. And I want to start a nonprofit eventually.
So you said a second book. Tell us about your first book.
So my first book is called Talk Cancer to Me. And it's basically like my story, my journey, tips and tricks for chemo.
Well, Jessi, we appreciate you taking time tonight to be on the show. You're a huge inspiration to us. And, again, for everyone listening, take a lot of the things that Jessi said and add them to your story. Just know that you're not alone when it comes down to this. There are tons of people out there like us here. And then there's so many avenues that you can go down and people you can reach out to. If you have any kind of questions, be sure to reach out to us here at the show. We'll be happy to connect you directly with the chemo kits that Jessi has or any other resources that we have available for you. So again, Jessi, we appreciate it, and we will talk to you soon, okay?
Thank you. Have a great night.
We appreciate you spending time with us on today's episode and encourage you to continue the conversation to help you keep pushing forward. For more resources based on today's episode, as well as ways to recommend a guest and connect to Truett personally, head over to 1%podcast.com. Be sure to join us next time for more stories of inspiration right here with Truett Taylor on the 1% Podcast.